Parliament and from his privileged position as a former chief of staff. But there was also another sociological position on the appointments of President Mahama. It was rendered by Black Rasta. Some of the language from Black Rasta's rendition is quite harsh, but here it is.
I am honestly worried about the number of people President Mahama is appointing left, right, and center. I am scared. In fact, cockroaches are being appointed, lizards are being appointed, mosquitoes are being appointed left, right, and center. Mr. President, let's be honest and let's have it straight.
Paul Adomochi da Bible until we think was Black Rasta say. Ombejinebo ebo be na Black Rasta e de koma Paul ebo no ne say o ka chere say Mahama amemu no enipa obe appoint o mo be do so class ne aban a wokoro no na Black Rasta ntena se na say ya ye ka say Black Rasta na aba abonten a wa confirm ene wo che say Paul bra beje obo we na Paul ekotena video so na oye ni program no ene wo so de ade be din komo ene na esewani eni kwa se me na me ka kire wo yakoni enkotie yesi Mahama amemu no wa fa nipa esne amemu bia e wa asase so.
Region chiefs have gone to Speaker of Parliament, Speaker Bagbin, insisting that he should find who said daughter of Emedra. People speculate about who said it, but we'll get there in a minute. We'll get to daughter of Emedra in a minute. Now, though, we had done a story here about President Mahama's first broken promise. I hope you remember that. His first broken promise was the number of women who were going to be in his cabinet. At the end of the day, his promise was completely shattered away. Now there's another matter coming up. Samuel Abu-Jinapor here is alleging before Parliament that President John Dramani Mahama does not have 60 ministers in reality. You know, there's a de facto, the de jure, there's an ipso facto, ipso jure. So de facto means in terms of facts. De jure means in the terms of law. As far as the law is concerned, de jure, de facto. As far as ipso jure, de jure. De jure is as far as the law is concerned. Ipso jure is as far as the law says. Now, de facto is as far as the fact goes. Ipso facto is as far as the factual thing you can see. Abu-Jinapor is alleging that in de jure terms, President Mahama may say he has 60 ministers, but in de facto terms, he has 100 ministers. He doesn't have 60. And that is a deception of the people. As you remember, is it Abraham Lincoln who said it? You can fool the people, some of the people all the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time, etc., etc. Bob Marley put it in a song. The celebrated Ghanaian conscious speaker, Black Rasta, also took his turn to express his discontent about the way the appointments are being made. Let's first go to Parliament and listen to Samuel Abu-Jinapor's erudite presentation about this matter. Just for the records, because President Mahama says he has 60 ministers. Abu says, no, you have 100. Why is Abu saying that President Mahama has 100 ministers and not 60? Have a look.
Speaker, let me address one very important matter, which is the question of the size of government. And indeed, the president, when he addressed this house, made the claim that he had formed the leanest and most effective government in the history of our country. So, Speaker, I want to submit that you can have 10 ministers, another government can have 20 ministers, and the government that has 20 ministers may have a smaller government machinery, a smaller government size than you who have 10 ministers. And I want to demonstrate that, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, it's on record. The record is that the pegging or ranking of officials of the presidency are as follows, Mr. Speaker, since the inception of the fourth Republican dispensation. The chief of staff is pegged at the rank below the Speaker of Parliament, but above a cabinet minister who doubles as a member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, a senior presidential advisor is pegged at the level of a cabinet minister who doubles as a member of Parliament. So a senior presidential advisor, by all intents and purposes, their salaries, emolument, conditions of service is equivalent to a cabinet minister who doubles as a member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, a presidential advisor is pegged at the level of a cabinet minister who is not a member of Parliament. A presidential staffer is pegged at the level of a non-cabinet minister who is not a member of Parliament. And a presidential aide is pegged at the level of a deputy minister. These are the rankings since the inception of the fourth Republican legislature. Mr. Speaker, so if you want to see the size of government and its bearing on the national exchequer, Mr. Speaker, don't just look at ministers and deputy ministers. Look at the government holistically. And Mr. Speaker, I want to submit that if you look at this government holistically, there are ministers, deputy ministers, senior presidential advisors, presidential staffers, presidential aides. President Mahama has formed arguably one of the biggest or largest governments in the history of our country as it relates to the cost on the national exchequer. Mr. Speaker, why do I say this? Check, for example, the president has appointed Dr. Valerie Sawyer as senior presidential advisor in charge of government affairs. Her rank is a cabinet minister who doubles as a member of parliament. So her salary, her emolument, conditions of service, everything to do with her office is at the same rank as a cabinet minister who doubles as a member of parliament. Mr. Speaker, he's appointed a presidential advisor on economy, appointed presidential advisor for 24-hour economy, presidential advisor in special aid to the president, presidential advisor on national anti-corruption program, presidential advisor on diaspora affairs. Mr. Speaker, he goes on to appoint presidential advisor, presidential staffer, and special aid to the vice president, presidential staffer for Black Star experience, and then presidential staffer for diaspora affairs. Mr. Speaker, then he goes ahead to appoint 5 policy advisors to the vice president. Mr. Speaker, he tells the country that he's appointed a minister in charge of agribusiness, and yet he's appointed director at the presidency in charge of agriculture and agribusiness. My good friend Peter Buama Otukono. Mr. Speaker, he says he will not appoint deputy regional ministers, and he appoints 16 presidential staffers in charge of the 16 regions of our country. Mr. Speaker, I want to submit that these presidential staffers in charge of the 16 regions of our country, in essence, as it relates to the cost on the national exchequer, are in fact, indeed, and in substance, deputy ministers of state. Mr. Speaker, he then appoints, Mr. Speaker, listen carefully, please. Mr. Speaker, he then appoints 1 presidential advisor on media, 4 directors of communication at the office of the president, 5 deputy directors of communication, 2 communication specialists, 5 technical communication assistants, 1 media aide, 1 assistant media liaison officer, 1 communications consultant. I've done the mathematics, and I want to submit. I've done the mathematics that I want to submit, and I do this not from a partisan lens, but I do this as somebody who had the privilege and honor to serve as Deputy Chief of Staff. I know how it works. In terms of the cost on the national exchequer, the President has appointed 100 ministers and deputy ministers.
That was Abdullah's point. Send us your text on what you think about this issue. He's saying that based on the advisors that President Mahama has appointed, he has a point. How do you have a minister for agri? You have a deputy minister for agri. Then you have at the presidency presidential advisor on agribusiness. What is happening? You have 3 people on agribusiness. John Domelo is deputy minister. There's a minister. Then somebody at the presidency. He sits at the presidency. We'll talk about that. But that was Abu's view of the matter from Parliament and from his privileged position as a former chief of staff. But there was also another sociological position on the appointments of President Mahama. It was rendered by Black Rasta. Some of the language from Black Rasta's rendition is quite harsh, but here it is.
I am honestly worried about the number of people President Mahama is appointing left, right, and center. I am scared. In fact, cockroaches are being appointed, lizards are being appointed, mosquitoes are being appointed left, right, and center. Mr. President, let's be honest and let's have it straight. If you have promised that we are going to have the leanest government is not only about ministers and deputy ministers. They involve and include all your appointees, for crying out loud. I am scared. The rate at which appointments are flying all over the place. Is it a way to satisfy some people who supported the campaign? When you pass here, a cockroach has been appointed as something for something. A lizard is here, a frog is here. Then you check another corner. There is a bigger reptile there that is also appointed. It is a cause for alarm.
What shall we say to these things?
That the NDC described as over expenditure and all of that, he was able to grow the economy to 5.7% GDP and 1.2 trillion in terms of nominal GDP. This has never happened before. When Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta went to Parliament in November 2023 and said that for the first time, Ghana is going to record a nominal GDP of over 1 trillion. They said it was not possible. Today, it is possible. With that 250 billion expenditure. Today, Atto-Forson is seeking to spend 290 billion. Yet, he is projecting a real GDP growth lower than what President Akufo-Addo achieved. What are you talking about? Why are you spending more by growing less?
That's a sin in that if any finance minister comes and is projecting to grow less than he has inherited,
it doesn't make sense.
We cannot accept that.
It doesn't make sense. Even after COVID, after Russia-Ukraine war,
they take for granted a lot.
After COVID, after Russia and Ukraine and all the co-meaning, Akufo-Addo was able to restore the economy to pre-COVID levels. And now we are growing at 5.7. Now you are seeking to spend more than Akufo-Addo spent, yet you are saying that your growth is going to be below what Akufo-Addo left.
What growth percentage is he projecting?
4%.
But how does Parliament feel when the finance minister, just 2 days before the finance minister came, the Statistical Service published the economic growth and then the GDP size? How does a finance minister come to Parliament and project less than what he has inherited? I can't understand that.
I was shocked.
And Parliament was happy with it.
No. And you saw he felt shy when he was talking about the GDP growth and then the debt to GDP ratio, to the extent that he couldn't openly come out to mention the debt to GDP ratio because he has said it had reduced drastically. But
that's an important message for the budget. How can you read the budget without telling us debt to GDP ratio?
If the Ghana Statistical Service had not released the data yesterday, I tell you, they were going to put a debt to GDP ratio at 76%.
What did the Statistical Service present?
The Statistical Service presented the economic data yesterday.
Yes,
and they do
was
that
it?
Every 3
Debt
months.
to GDP.
And they said that the economy has grown in real terms by 5.7%, contrary to what Atto-Forson and co were putting out during transition. They put all kinds of negative figures, lower figures around. But the Statistical Service.
But President Mahama said the economy has been managed criminally.
Yeah, he
the
said
criminally managed economy is growing at 5.7.
And then you say you are going to manage it better. You want to grow below that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. For the first time, Akufo-Addo has left a size of the economy in terms of economics, quantum terms, 1.2 trillion.
Size of our GDP.
It has never happened in the history of this country. President Mahama left an economy that was growing nominally in terms of nominal GDP, 219 billion, 219 billion. This is what he left for President Akufo-Addo. Akufo-Addo in 8 years has moved that not around 500 billion, not 600 billion, not 800 billion, not 900 billion, not just 1 trillion, 1.2 trillion. Then again, Akufo-Addo has left you gross international reserves of $8.9 billion sitting down for you. What else do you want to do?
And with all this, they are projecting to grow lower.
To grow less.
But that is a crime. That is the crime.
If we have time to go to the budget now, there's a lot of child's play. To be honest with you, you see, I shouldn't have had the opportunity to criticize Atto at this time because it is his first budget. He is new in the ministry, although he has served as deputy minister before. But what he did today, there's a lot of policy incoherence. Because he says one thing here, and the other time he says it. Did you hear him say that there's a lot of arrests, and he has imputed in his data about 49 billion cedis as arrests. Then he comes back along the reading to say that these arrests are yet to be audited. Which serious finance minister does this? You don't go to parliament to present arrest figures that are not audited. And mind you, anytime you come as a new government, you will get all sorts of contractors coming to you that, oh, government owes me S amount, government owes me Y amount. You need to take your time, validate, audit the figures, and ascertain the veracity of the cases and the evidence presented to you. If you haven't done that, and it hasn't gone through the give-miss process, it can never be recognized as a liability for government. But here we are. We have a whole finance minister who comes to parliament to present figures that he himself admits are not audited, just to let a government look bad. But interestingly, when he was talking about the gross public debt, you see, he could not add those figures to the gross public debt because these debt figures are stocks. They have been recorded by the Bank of Ghana, the IMF, in December. And so that one was started. He couldn't deal with that. Yet he moved around to say that we owe this amount, we owe this. How have you verified this data? Have you audited them? No. And he himself said they have not been audited. Yet he has used that to compute primary balances and putting us in the deficit and all of that. In April, I can bet you, the IMF is coming back for review. And I can tell you most of these figures, they will reverse them. And so I don't understand why the finance minister allows himself this to enter into this arena, to present false information, and he knows they are not true. Look at the tax issues he talked about.
So let's get to the tax. Has e-levy been abandoned?
Yes.
He's cancelled e-levy.
I am in full support for the abolition or the cancellation of taxes that may be christened as nuisance taxes. I won't sit here to say that if a tax is nuisance, we should still burden the Ghanaian people. And mind you, President Akufo-Addo did something fantastic. Remember Mr. Kyei-Duah's first budget on 3rd March 2017. Sometimes we forget so quick. In the first budget of President Akufo-Addo, he abolished or removed 17 different taxes in this country. Today, people want to pretend they have forgotten. Never in the history of Ghana have we had a government that has reduced taxes or abolished taxes the way President Akufo-Addo did. In his first budget, 17 different taxes in this country by Kyei-Duah and President Akufo-Addo and the NPP government. Today, Atto-Forson subtly sought to create the impression that he is abolishing sales taxes, but in effect, only 3. And he
get the impression he's abolishing 6.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That was a big lie he told the people of this country, because he said that they are seeking to abolish emissions levy, withholding tax on lottery earnings, VAT on motor vehicle insurance, e-levy, 1.5 withholding tax on export of gold, and then COVID-19 levy. It is true that yes, they are seeking to abolish the COVID-19 levy, which I support. Vice President Bawumia had indicated that the purpose for which the COVID-19 levy was imposed is outlived, so it is better we abolish it. So he talks about that. The 1.5 withholding tax on gold exports. Remember, it was 3%, and government, President Akufo-Addo through Finance Minister Kyei-Duah, reduced it to 1.5%. The 3% was imposed by the previous NDC government. NPP brought it down from 3% to 1%, so effectively a reduction of 1.5%. Today, Atto-Forson is seeking to reduce it further, to make it 0. Fantastic. I support it. Then, e-levy. Okay? He says that they are going to abolish e-levy, which I also support. Remember, Bawumia had even indicated that there was no sense in e-levy and all of that. But when he says, I will abolish emission levy, Paul, with all due respect, there is nobody in this country who is charged a tax or levy called emissions levy. So something that is not there, Why do you say you will abolish?
But we all know about some emissions levy that Parliament discussed before.
Parliament passed the act for the imposition of the emissions levy.
Yes.
And remember, when Bawumia started his campaign and announced that he will abolish the emissions levy, later government came to say that they are no longer implementing the emissions levy. So the emissions levy was never imposed on anybody. There's nobody in this country who can raise a finger to say that I have paid some form of emission.
So even though Parliament passed it, it was never implemented.
Never implemented.
Till the MPP left
Till today.
But Atufo says he's abandoning it.
You don't understand. That is one of the lies they try to put across Ghanaians. Then 2, he says VAT on motor vehicle insurance. As we speak today, there is no VAT on motor vehicle insurance. Not a single person in this country can raise up a finger to say that I have paid motor vehicle insurance. Rather, they are imposing a tax because there is tax exemption on all non-life insurance. Now they are taking away the tax exemption, that President akufo-addo placed on all non-life insurance. They are taking it away to let people who are going for non-life insurance to pay, and then they are excluding the motor vehicle insurance. But it was not there. It is not something people pay. Rather, it was not paid together with other things, all the other non-life insurance. You are saying that you're going to impose tax on the non-life insurance, excluding the motor vehicle. But we are saying that, Mr. Minister, there is no VAT as we speak